This is a prophetic archive. There's no topic part
Y si el
2.
justo con dificultad se salva,
And so, if the righteous
¿en
are
dónde
saved with
aparecerá el impío y el
difficulty,
pecador?
where do you think the wicked and the sinner appear?
¿Se da
Question.
cuenta que
Do you
tan
realize how
serio
serious it
esta
is to
misma
assume the
posición
position
de Hijo?
of a son?
Aló,
Hello? Hello?
¿Se dan
Realize that this is
cuenta
not a disgrace. This
que
is
en un
good.
momento de gracia,
This
bueno,
is
esto
enjoyable.
se disfruta.
It is so
Se
enjoyable
disfruta
that
tanto
even in the midst
que
of
hasta en las menos
difficulty,
dadas
we have to
dificultades
rejoice.
nos tenemos que gozar.
Hello?
Aló,
What did I
yo
say?
dije,
No. I did not say that.
no,
I said
yo no dije
that
eso,
you
yo dije
have to rejoice
que en esto tú te
so
gozas
much
tanto que todavía
that
en medio de
even
las
in the midst of
dificultades
difficulties, we
nos gozamos.
rejoice. I know when you are under
Yo sé tu
difficulty from God
respuesta bajo
because
la
of your
dificultad de
joy.
Dios,
But I also know when you have
como también sé
difficulty as a
cómo tú tienes
consequence
dificultad por tu
because
sequía,
of your depression.
por tu depresión.
Hello, can you write that down?
Aló,
Write it down and keep it as a reminder.
escríbanlo para que
Because
quede
today I'm
después
coming at you with everything.
piedra y con todo.
Because
Óigame,
when you go through difficulties with joy,
cuando tú
then you're suffering
atravesas
as a son.
dificultades con gozo,
But when you go through difficulties
tú
with
mismo te
sadness,
conviertes.
with melancholy,
Pero cuando
with
tú atravesas la
contempt, with
dificultad con
carnality,
tristeza,
then there are
para cubrir tu
consequences
desprecio por
that,
la
of
realidad
course, you want to
y
cover up for
conocimiento de que
people,
así es.
especially to your
Y claro, lo
pastor.
quieren camuflajear
And you
para
say things like, oh,
ah,
Pastor,
que no va a caer aquí
I'm
bien.
just going through
Porque
such a
esto lo atraviesa
struggle
con
and it's
dificultad.
just this battle that I'm facing. No.
Tú
You don't
estás
have
sintiendo
struggles and you
que
don't
si
have
estás
battles.
aflijo,
You have
entonces
consequences.
el
That's what you
gozo
have.
del Señor te
And if
fortalece.
what you're suffering had been like a
De modo
son,
que los que padecen
then
según la
the
voluntad
joy
de
of the
Dios,
Lord strengthens you.
bien,
So let those who suffer
todo
according to
de los
God's
que
will,
padecen
listen
según la
carefully,
voluntad de Dios,
let those who
atienden
suffer
sus
according to
almas al
God's
fiel
will
Creador
commit their
y hagan
souls to the faithful
el
Creator and do
bien.
good. How do you
¿Cómo se
have to
debe de
go through
hacer?
difficulties?
Bien.
How should it be done? Good.
¿Cómo que se debe de hacer?
It sounds simple, right? Good. But
Eso
that
es
good
bien.
that you
Y
are
ese
being
bien
called to do
que
and to
muchas veces
show, is that what we have
hemos sido
often been tempted to do so
para que
badly?
lo hagamos.
How is it that we have to do it?
¿Qué es lo que hay que
Going
hacer?
through difficulties? Good.
Eso es lo que
But
usted
is that what you are being provoked to do
bien.
lately? How does today want you to do
Usted
it?
está provocando que lo
How?
haga bien.
What operates in people? How is
Dios no
it
quiere que usted lo haga
tempting
como.
you? How do you treat others? But
Usted
Pastor,
prefiere la
it's just
gente.
that, he treated me so badly. So
¿Qué quiere que
do
usted lo
you
haga
really
como?
expect me to be kind
Después
when
la otra
somebody's
persona hace
treating me
mejor.
badly?
Pero usted me
Hello?
trató mal a mí.
There's a mess here. There's a
Entonces,
big
usted quiere que
confusion
yo venga
here.
bien cuando
And
ellos
what
me
is the
tratan
mess?
mal.
How are they treating
Hello?
you
Aquí
lately?
hay un lío, aquí hay una confusión
Bad?
grande.
And how should you treat
¿Cómo
others?
te tratan a ti?
But Pastor, they're treating me badly.
Mal.
And you know what?
¿Y cómo
That's
te
where the
tratan?
devil runs out of gas here. Hello? What did I say? This is where the devil runs out of gas with kingdom children. Why?
Hello?
Because if it is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth,
Porque
why
si
did
Él
you
no
give
perdonó
him
a
your
estos
eye?
sirvientes, ¿por qué usted no le
That's a
entrega la
question to think about.
¿Cómo usted estaba
And when you
padeciendo
think about it,
consecuencia
why are you suffering? Are you suffering because of consequence or are you suffering because you're a son? Because if it had been for being a son, how will you be? Happy, enjoying, and how were you? Sad. Oh, Pastor, but it's just such a struggle and such a battle. Yes, because evangelicals are the ones who have the most struggles and most battles. Tell me, Brother John, how's it going? Oh, Pastor, just struggling and battling, just going through life. Sure. But why don't you say that is because you're wicked? And that is because you're going through some consequences. Oh, Pastor, but don't say that. That sounds strong. No, it's not. You know why? Because it's time for you to know and understand if what you're fighting, it's because you're doing it as a son, or if what you're fighting, it's because you're facing a consequence. Let's listen to this entire text. 1 Peter 4:12 through 19. And if someone is faint-hearted, let them be faint-hearted. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though something strange has happened to you. But rejoice in that you share Christ's sufferings, that when his glory is revealed, you may also be rejoicing with exceeding joy.
O alguien
If you are insulted for the name of Christ, you're blessed, because the Spirit of glory rests on you. Certainly, on their part, he is blasphemed, but on your part, he is glorified. Therefore, let none of you suffer as a murderer, or as a thief, or as an evildoer, or a busybody in other people's affairs. But if anyone suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God for it. For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first begins with us, what will be the end of those who do not obey the gospel of God? And if the righteous is saved with difficulty, where would the ungodly and the sinner appear? Therefore, let those who suffer according to the will of God commit their souls to a faithful Creator in doing good. This is great. And there's something very interesting about this. Listen carefully. Satan uses people to get you to associate with them. Hey, Pastor, did you see what that woman said to me? Satan uses this so that you can get into a I said, she said, because he's always looking for ways to associate you. Hello? He will always speak ill of you. He will always put you down. He's always looking for something because he's looking for you to lower yourself to his level. And you know what you do most of the time? You do. You lower yourself to his level. Do you have to lower yourself to the devil's level? No. That's what makes you different. You don't have to say or to do what he says. He pulls you down, so you lower yourself to his level. But you can suffer like a son. Well, Pastor, but I thought that whoever was involved in the things of the Lord wouldn't have anything happen to him. True, but that is when you suffer like a son, not like a thief, not like a murderer, or for meddling, or for being an evildoer. And so when it's like that, it's not like a son that you're suffering. Okay? So if your consequences come because you stole, are you suffering like a son or like a thief? Oh, yeah, it's like a thief, Pastor. Exactly. Because if you're suffering like a son, it's because you did whatever you did according to Christ. Let me ask you a question. Did Christ steal? Did he get involved in people's business? Was he a criminal? Was he a murderer? So if you are suffering like a sinner, you're not suffering like a son. So what do you have to do to stop living by consequences? You have to suffer like Christ. Because if you suffer like Christ, then you will suffer with joy. Hello? If you suffer like Christ, then you will suffer with joy. And if that hasn't been the case, then your suffering seems like it wasn't much like Christ. You get it now? Why there was so much violence that you didn't know how to handle because your suffering wasn't like Christ? Because it was more consequences, and that's why you made a mess. And there you were in your praying room saying, Lord, Father, Lord, but here we are. And there was God saying, stop your nonsense and do what you have to do. Assume your commitment because these are just sufferings based on consequences. When I cannot draw that joy from the Spirit, I have to stop and I have to investigate whether what I'm suffering, it's because of a consequence. Because when it is a consequence, what you have to do is that you have to remedy what you did wrong, and that's it. How many of you are understanding this? Now, if what you're suffering, it's because you're a child of God, you cannot remedy that. What you have to do is just rejoice and learn to depend on Him. I mean, I cannot change that. That's why there are people who would tell you, oh my God, but why are you getting hit so much and you're going through so much? And you know what? When you know you are going through it like a child and you're suffering because of it, you tell them, you know what? Let me be.
Ahora,
Okay?
cuando es consecuencia,
Just
cuando es
let
por
him hit me
ser
and let
hijo,
me be.
eso tú no puedes
Why?
cambiar. Eso es algo
Because
sano
there are
y depender de
people
él. Ahora,
who
yo no
they
puedo
feel
poner eso.
good and they want to come to you
Por eso que hay
to
personas
have pity
que
on
te
you.
llegan a decir,
And they even greet you with such sadness, like, oh man, how are you, brother? How are you, pastor? How are you, sister?
mire, buen froco,
Because they see you and they don't know that you're in a process of being a son.
ay, pero
There are children who are going through a process that is coming to elevate them, not to limit them.
ay, hombre, ¿cómo tú estás?
But there are people that when they look at you, humanly speaking, they see you and they see you with eyes of pity. And they even say, oh, how are you, Sister Esther? How are you doing?
Pero hay otro que humanamente
And Sister Esther makes her sad face like, oh. So they'll believe her.
¿cómo te está yendo?
Here, sis, you know,
Pone la carita para que
I'm fine. I'm just here like the last piece of bread on the table, you know.
como el pan chiquito.
How many of you made that show? For real. We love that show. But listen, the person speaking to you right now has spent many years undergoing God's processes just to take you on this prophetic path. And many would say, oh, poor pastor, poor apostle, you poor thing.
Tiene muchos años
Yes, because there are people who believe that I'm suffering or that I was suffering. Imagine. People would say, oh my God, pastor, you have no car. You don't have a home. Oh, wow. You don't have this. You don't have that. And they will come up with a list of the things you don't have. But you know what? Since you already know who you are, since you know you have a father, that no matter what condition you're in, he loves you, you know he has control over you. And even though you might be living by consequences of a past life, you have now assumed to live under dependence, so that God's prophetic destiny is marked in your life. Oh, but pastor, but sister, but brother, you don't own a car? No, I don't have to own one. And I don't need it because I have many vehicles at my disposal. Not mine, but I drove around in so many different vehicles. And I got everyone confused because this happened for a lot of years. And then the coin started to flip. And then people will read in the newspaper in the Dominican and they would see robbery and mugging and the devil taking over the country. But then they would look at me and they would say, but no. But when I speak to the pastor, everything is fine. And then they would see the Dominican Republic in chaos and in fire. And then they would talk to me and it was like, wait a minute, no. When I speak to him, I see kingdom. I see glory. I see a person who is showing the Father. Understand this well. Human beings are moved by matter, by what they see. But when you show them what they cannot see, they get scared and they say, wow, wow. And they do whatever it takes to have what you have. Hello? How many times have you been through that? Are you understanding me? You might be suffering for being a son and not by consequences. But we are so focused on what we did and didn't do, or what we have or what we don't have. But with that foolishness, we are just wasting time so we don't assume our commitment. But pastor, you know how it is, you know. No, you have to stop saying you know how it is. There are people who are so messed up that they still haven't forgiven themselves. Oh no, because what I did was terrible, pastor. It was terrible. And I don't forgive myself. No. Stop messing around. Forgive yourself. But most importantly, take on your commitment. Because the problem isn't that you don't forgive yourself. The problem is that you don't want to assume what corresponds to you. The devil spends trillions, billions of money every day just to take your focus off the love of God in your life. The devil spends all the money in the world to entertain you so that you lose focus on how much God loves you. He wants you to lose that focus because in the end, what entertains you all day is not what's going to fulfill you. Hello?
El diablo se
But it
gasta
entertains you,
todo
but
el
it's not going
dinero
to
del mundo
fulfill you.
para
It just
entretener
takes away your time
y tú
and it
sabes que te
steals you from what you should be
¿cuántos te
focusing on.
llama a ti?
Hello?
Te
How
dice
many
porque
are understanding this?
llama. Porque al fin y al
Entertainment
cabo en
steals
lo
your
que el diablo
time.
te
It steals your
entretiene,
prophetic
en lo
dial.
que te
And it
brega,
steals so many things that serve you
no,
well
pero
in
te
your
entretiene.
spiritual and even material
Y llega un
life.
tiempo
Then when
que
you
tú
come
hablas
to see
y
me
no
later,
tienes
you're
enfoque.
depressed,
No,
you're confused, and you're
tú dejaste
having
que
a
te lleve por ahí
problem. And what was it?
y te roba el tiempo y te
That you simply
desenfoca
let yourself be
y te
impressed
mete
by the
y
devil's
te
schemes.
roba tantas cosas
You know what they
que
call
sirven
that?
para bien en tu
Entertainment.
vida
He entertains you.
espiritual y hasta
But when you are a
material.
son, nothing
Tú de una vez
entertains you. You are the one who
una frustración,
entertains.
una confusión,
When you are a
una
son, no one makes you enjoy. You make others enjoy.
impresionante
Nothing makes me
del
enjoy.
diablo.
I rejoice. I
¿Sabes
am
qué
the one who
te
decides
entretiene?
how I will rejoice.
Él te
How
entretiene.
many are understanding me? That's
Tú
having
puedes ir,
authority.
nada
Let
te
you be the
entretiene,
one who
tú
rejoices,
es que entretiene.
not that anybody has to make you rejoice.
Cuando tú eres hijo,
When you go to church and you
nadie te
use
pone a
and you
gozar.
listen to
Tú
those worship
pones a
songs
gozar.
that will make you move because the
Pero nadie me
anointing they
goza.
had.
Yo me
No, no, no,
gozo.
no, no.
Soy yo el que
I
decido.
rejoice on my own. I rejoice
¿Cuánto me están
alone.
entendiendo?
And I
Y la
rejoice
mentalidad
as
es
I
suya
want
que
to
todo
rejoice.
esté,
It's that
que usted
simple.
sea el que se goce.
Everyone wants to have everything and everywhere,
¿Te das
and
cuenta
they
por qué no
even
dice ese amén?
strive for
Por
many
esto.
things.
Se creen
But
que
many times that is based on a
se
deception
ríen como
of
cuando ven
not
a uno
wanting to
gozando
assume what
solito.
corresponds.
A mí que nadie me ponga a gozar.
And you know what that makes
Yo
you?
solo.
A trickster.
Y gozo como yo quiero gozar.
What did I say earlier? That we are rich, extremely rich,
Todo el mundo quiere
outrageously
tener
rich.
de todo y
We
todo
have riches to
bastante y
impress the
pasa
world.
por muchas cosas.
That's why we
Pero
sat
muchas
you
veces
down
estamos
here. You know why?
bajo un engaño
To show you
de que
first who you
a mí no me
are,
corresponde.
then your misfortune, and then who you are, so that then you can start with that wealth that is in you.
Exageradamente
So that
ricos.
then you can say, wow, Pastor.
Nosotros
And
tenemos
we have
riqueza
all
para
had
impresionar
this
al mundo.
all this time. Yes, all this time you've had all the riches in you. You were just being very badly mismanaged. So from now on, whoever wants to talk to me, you got to do it while you're rejoicing and dancing. Tell me, Pastor, how are you? Come at me with joy. You know why? Because the great thing is that when we lived under consequences, we thought and say, oh Lord, but what's up with all this war and all this battle? And how can you have not war and battle if you were so irresponsible? You would say, but Pastor, I'm a Christian and I am suffering. Yeah, sure. The devil doesn't want you to take responsibility for what is yours. Because when you take responsibility for what is yours, then you're going to unleash God's favor on you. The word says that God knows what you need. And you know something interesting? Because you focus on your needs, you have never enjoyed what God has been giving you. Again, because you focus so much on your needs, you have not been able to enjoy what God has been giving you. God knows what I need. Listen, because your mind hasn't been freed yet, you have settled for crumbs, for leftovers. There are people who have stayed at those levels, stuck, because they settled for what they had. And they've said, oh, this is enough. It's okay. And you know something? Needs don't always remain the same. I had one son, then I had two, and now I have three. I cannot raise three with a can of milk. My needs have increased. And not only that, I have a wife. And what a wife. Okay? So listen to me. My needs have increased. I didn't have a car. 1, 2. Didn't the needs increase? I didn't have air conditioning. 1, 2, 3. Didn't they increase? I didn't have a telephone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Haven't they increased? Is it the same need? Are you understanding me? But there are people who stayed at a single level of need, and they didn't accept God's overabundance in their lives. And you know why? And you might ask, why didn't you want more? Because many times you started wanting what wasn't yours. Okay? And I'm going into the time of sowing now. So accept this last piece of information. Many times you didn't want more because you started wanting what wasn't yours. And many times you didn't go through your season and enjoyed it because you were busy paying attention to something else.
No aumentaron.
That's why sometimes people remain stagnant. And there are people that say, like Jorge's friend, which would tell him,
Lo mismo en esa
you know, Jorge, I just feel like I'm missing a day in my life.
personas que se quedaron en un solo nivel de
She thought that there was a day that just didn't fall on the right day.
necesidad de Dios su vida.
And believe it or not, many of you have felt like that. Many of you have felt like you haven't fallen on the right day. You know why? Because you didn't focus on what corresponds to you. You didn't know how to identify your basic needs, which is the most important thing. There are people who have everything, and when you go back to the basics, they have nothing because they want to save the world and give everyone money. And when you went to them and your handling of things, there was nothing. Remember that knowledge is what gives you authority, because I know I have authority today.
Un amigo un día le dijo,
Today, you're faced with the same monsters of yesterday, aren't you? They're the same. Today, you're faced with the same misfortune of yesterday. It's the same. The only difference now is that it's not the same sun from yesterday. You are not the same as from yesterday, okay? It's another person, okay? This time, you say, nope, your scheme, devil, is not going to work. Your plot is not going to work. Your same provocation is not going to work. How many are experiencing that? How many can see that? It's not the same person who's going to give in, who's going to be dominated, or who's going to fall into the same trap of association and carnality. You are saying, wait a minute, devil, I'm not going to do it like that again. Why? Because you already know that those vicious cycles was what kept those cursings repeating themselves in your life. And you know that it's time for them to be broken. That cycle that has brought you misfortune for being a murderer, a thief, a wrongdoer, and a meddling in others people's affairs. Hello? So we, the children, we suffer under the will of God and not because of consequences.